The Denver Broncos have found themselves in the perfect situation to add a running back, and the timing couldn't be better. This year's draft class is loaded with talent at that position, offering plenty of great options. In this video, we'll explore the possibilities for Sean Payton if a top choice like Ashton Jeanty is off the board at pick 20, or even if he's still available. But here's the catch. Payton might be better off waiting until day 2 or even day 3 of the draft because the depth at running back this year is truly remarkable. We'll break down all the potential strategies, what to look for at the combine, and much more. Now let's take a quick trip back to the 2023 draft. This one's a bit of a painful memory for Broncos fans. If you remember, we didn't have a first round pick, so George Paton joked about spending the time watching Russell Wilson highlights. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions were making some bold moves, and one of the biggest shocks of the draft was when they selected Jahmyr Gibbs at number 12th overall. Most people were stunned, especially since the Lions had him ranked ahead of Bijan Robinson on their draft board. Nobody really saw Gibbs as an every down back, but looking back, I'd take him over Robinson any day of the week. It just goes to show how close the talent gap can be between running backs, even if their rankings differ. This is where Sean Payton's ability to evaluate talent really shines. He'll know whether Ashton Jeanty is worth a first-round pick at 20, or if the difference between him and other talented running backs isn't as big as some might think. What if waiting for a second or third-round pick could land an equally strong player? It's all about making the best decision for the Broncos, whether it's adding a running back or addressing another need, like a safety from Georgia, as many have suggested. The draft is full of potential, and Payton has plenty of options to get the Broncos the right piece for the future. Stay tuned, because this decision is one worth following closely. As the draft draws closer, it's becoming clearer that Ashton Jeanty might not make it to the Broncos at pick 20. Teams like the Chicago Bears, the Las Vegas Raiders, and even the Dallas Cowboys are all reportedly eyeing him. So if he's off the table, what are Sean Payton's options? Well, there are still plenty of talented running backs available, with many considered likely to go in the second round. However, some of these guys are so skilled that they could even fall to day 3, potentially undrafted, which we've seen happen in Denver before. Think back to the Broncos' Super Bowl winning teams. We've had several undrafted running backs who played huge roles, like C.J. Anderson, who became a standout player for the team. The Broncos have a long history of finding gems in the later rounds, or even after the draft. One name that's starting to pop up in discussions is Bashal Tutin, a running back out of Virginia Tech. ESPN's latest mock draft had him going in the first round to the Chargers, which is a big surprise considering most experts have him pegged as a day 2 or even day 3 pick. His highest draft projection is that number, 96, but it's intriguing that some analysts believe he could go earlier. What makes him stand out? Let's dive into his highlights, but first, I'll say this. When I watch his film, it makes me wonder why we're even considering a first-round running back pick. This is where the combine becomes crucial. While watching highlights can give us a good feel for a player's talent, it's hard to judge the full picture just from film, especially since we don't always know the strength of the defenses they face. At the combine, we'll get a clearer sense of their speed, strength, and athleticism. We'll get official measurements, 40-yard dash times, and even bench press reps. These numbers will play a big role in determining whether a player like Tutin, who's got some flashy moments in his highlights, especially as a receiver, could be a valuable asset to a team like the Broncos. Tutin's name is definitely one to keep an eye on, and with his ability to catch passes and show off some serious athleticism, he could end up being a steal in the draft. It's going to be interesting to see how things unfold as the combine approaches and teams start making their final evaluations. It's easy to see why Bashal Tutin is starting to climb the draft boards, with some even projecting him as a first-round pick, like in that ESPN mock draft. His highlights show exactly why he's getting so much attention. One moment that really stands out is when he says, "I'm in the ACC now, and I'm a dog." Watching him bulldoze through defenders with his tough physical style, you can't help but agree. He's got this move, a little dead leg, that lets him shake off tacklers, and he's not afraid of contact. The guy just doesn't go down, and that kind of attitude and toughness could be exactly what the Broncos need in their backfield. Next up, there's Omarion Hampton, a running back out of North Carolina who's making waves. According to The Ringer, he's one of the top-ranked running backs, even in the conversation for a first-round pick. Watching his highlights, you can see why. He's got this upright running style, which reminds me a lot of Melvin Gordon back in his prime, before his time in Denver, of course. What's really interesting is how similar his play is to Ashton Genty's. Both have a more upright stance as they run, which isn't as common among running backs. Hampton's got a lot of potential, and he could definitely be a day 2 pick if the Broncos decide to go after him. Then there's Caleb Johnson, a big back who's also gaining some attention. Playing in the Big Ten, he faced tough competition like Michigan, which makes his impressive athleticism even more exciting. He's got that breakaway speed, which is exactly what you want in a running back. And much like Peyton loves to use, you'll often see him catching swing passes, showing his versatility in the passing game. That could make him a great fit for the Broncos' offense. His ability to break tackles and finish in the end zone stands out. Lastly, we can't ignore the buzz around a guy like Scabo. He's got a strong following, and people are loving his gritty dog mentality. Watching him play, you can tell he's got that special something. Someone who will fight for every yard no matter what. These are all intriguing options for Sean Payton to consider. Whether the Broncos end up grabbing a running back early or decide to wait for a gem in the later rounds, these names are definitely ones to watch as the draft approaches. I didn't really notice Scabo until I saw him in his bowl game. And man, he really stood out. The guy's got something different, something special. What I like about him is his vision. He can make defenders miss with quick cuts to the outside. But here's my concern. In the NFL, defenders are much faster, and I'm not sure if he'll be able to pull off the same moves against that level of speed. He's got a great jump cut, but in the pros, that linebacker closes the gap way quicker, and I wonder if he'll be able to turn the corner like he did in college. Still, there's no denying his effort and heart. He reminds me a little of Peyton Hillis or even Tim Tebow, guys who could fire up the whole team. You can see the attitude and grit in his play, and that's always valuable. I'm really curious to see how he performs at the Combine, where we'll get a better sense of his speed, strength, and overall athleticism. That's when the true test will come. His 40-yard dash time, bench press reps, and agility drills will tell us a lot about whether he's ready for the NFL. So after seeing all these highlights, Scabo, Omarion Hampton, Bashal Tutin, and Caleb Johnson, I'm curious which one excites you the most. Do you think it's worth taking a running back in the first round, or should the Broncos hold off given how deep the talent pool is at other positions this year? Let me know in the comments what you think. Before we wrap up, if you enjoyed this video, it would really help me out if you hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'm doing my best to bring you content like Brandon Perna, but I know I'll never quite reach his level of greatness. I even made a fun short video where I imagined what different ringtones Sean Payton might have for different people calling him. It was a little lighthearted moment, but it got me thinking about how fun it would be to see his reactions to the various characters in the NFL world. It's always interesting to imagine the behind-the-scenes stuff like that, right?